Alright everybody, Bostonian Plays Video Games back at you now. In the nice relaxing wasteland that is Fallout 76. So, tried to play some other video games, but I'll tell you right now, with all the hate that this video game has gotten, I just, I just turn it on when I want. It's a nice relaxing game. To be honest with you, today I want to talk about Andrew Yang, Bernie Sanders, and the DNC and what's going on. What do you think's going on? Andrew Yang unfortunately dropped out of the race, and I never thought that he. I actually did think he was going to go a little bit further. I think his ideas were catching on, and alright. Oh man, there's a whole mess of them here. 54. Jeez. Alright, come on now. Take it easy. Alright, let's turn that off so somebody doesn't hear me talking to myself and about Andrew Yang and all that. So, okay, I want to go, I guess, the other way. I want to get to Route 66 or whatever it is. So, I guess it's just... did I already pass it or something? Yeah, so that was exciting to see so many people, really taking on his ideas. Oh, that's the thing I wanted to say. Universal basic income being good and bad. The bad part, kind of being taking advantage of people who have already not really been born with too many advantageous economic cards. And what I mean by that, obviously, is just people who rely on, most of the jobs that will be automated, and companies are aggressively trying to automate them. They're not thinking about, the person who has 2 or 3 jobs to provide for their family, and keep a roof over their head. They're not thinking about that, and they're thinking about their bottom line, and they're hoping that the market, kind of adjusts itself to what the new demands would be, and not worrying too much about any type of aggression that may come from people who now have lost a sense of identity, a sense of purpose, and consistent income. So the bad part of the universal basic income is that you're still limiting an individual's economic growth by giving them $1,000 a month. Okay, fine. Yes, the pleasant idea is that they get a guaranteed income, which will take some pressure off. But if you were getting that $1,000 a month and could work 1 job instead of 2, then you'd have, number one, a reason to get up in the morning, a sense of purpose and identity, and you're building on that $1,000 a month. But again, if all of the jobs are going towards automation, lower income jobs, jobs that provide an introduction into the labor force, if you take those all away, then what you might have is this kind of economic slavery where you're completely dependent on $1,000 a month with no other opportunities. I've made a film about that. And again, I've mentioned it a couple times on here. It's almost done. July 26th is the limited release date. But that's exactly what the dystopia that was. That's the dystopia that I tried to explore. In Invasion, where this guy's not an entrepreneur, he doesn't want to be, and that a lot of people don't want to be entrepreneurs. They don't want to sit around all day thinking about schemes and making money and all this stuff. They want to have some place to go that keeps them somewhat grounded, somewhat organized with themselves, give them somewhat of an identity and sense of purpose, and provide for themselves. I mean, a lot of people want that as opposed to trying to, go through 5, 6, 7 different companies that they're trying to create, failing at 4 or 5 of them before they really learn what it takes to build a successful business. A lot of people just don't want. They have no interest in that. They their imagination doesn't go that way. So it could become a big problem. But the other thing that Andrew Yang was talking about, and I think is actually very, very important. I just read a book called The Age of Surveillance Capitalism, and it's a fantastic book. If you get the chance, please read that. It's definitely a book that explores the development of the evolution and the growth of the technocracy with a fine-tooth comb. It's the first book that I've read that really has a finger on the pulse of what's truly going on as far as these tech companies are concerned. And one thing that Andrew Yang brings up that I think is increasingly important is ownership of your data. So all the data that these companies are, buying and selling and gathering, you should have a right to see that. So when AI is flagging you for particular behaviors that you might show online, you can contest it, because the fact of the matter is, somebody's here. What is the moral lens that these machines are judging you on? 30 years ago, they would judge your Twitter post differently than today. So there's what moral lens are they not getting? Is the AI not reading you as having a sense of humor, but taking all these things seriously that you're liking on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and all this stuff, and then categorizing you as a problem or as a potential problem? Because what all this information can do is build basically a snapshot of who you are, what your behaviors are, and if you can fall back into particular behaviors that might not be healthy. So on the Joe Rogan Experience, and I forget who was on the show at the time, they went over this Twitter post, and I wish I could remember the name there too, but I can't. And the guy posted, he went into for an interview, and he was denied the job. And weeks later, months later, I don't know how long it was, he got a 347-page document in the mail describing all of the reasons that he didn't get the job, because a software company developed a program that goes through your entire online life and basically sees, calculates whether or not you're a risk to the company or not. And what I mean by that is, you're not going to, cause, violence or anything like that, but what's your potential of being frustrated in the job? Well, how long would you stay? 2 years, 3 years, instead of, what they're looking for, which might be a 6-year commitment. And it was going over what he liked on Twitter, what he liked on Facebook, describing him, obviously as a racist or a bigot because he liked some comedian's joke or something like that on Twitter. And that's what I mean by a moral lens. I mean, this software is judging this person based on a moral lens that's been designed by this historical context, which would not be the case, or the things he was judged on right now would not be the case 40 years ago, because there'd be a different moral lens. What people collectively believe at that particular time. And then, 20 years from now will also be different. So having your information and having the data that's been collected visible to you, so that you know what's going on and that you can contest the judgment that's been placed on you, I think is extraordinarily important. So that's one thing. An online Bill of Rights is another thing. that Andrew Yang is talking about, and it's kind of similar to that. Like, what are our rights in this data collection age, this surveillance capitalism? And it's something collectively. I mean, I think the conversation is being started, which is great, and that's what Andrew Yang, provided. And it's something that needs to continue because, these tech companies, they want to come out and say, oh, well, you won't understand and blah, blah, blah. But really, they're not even attempting to explain what's going on because the less you know, the less we know, the more power that they have. I mean, that's just the way information works. If you know something that's going to happen 3 days from now, and the other person that you're with doesn't, well, there is a certain power there because you know what's going to happen, so you can plan for that in advance where the other person can't. So, if a catastrophic event were to happen 3 days from now and you knew about it and you were collecting water and stuff like that and the other person didn't, then you would end up having more power. And that's basically, one analogy that I can think of on, why they would even keep him. It's not because they're smarter than everybody else. It does take a special intellectual capacity to develop these particular softwares and stuff like that. But really, they're not doing a lot of these, startup companies, and a lot of these companies that are selling software to corporations to help them hire people. They're opportunists. They're not geniuses, and they're certainly not helping anybody. I mean, they're really not. They're judging. They're finding a way to make money off of data collection by selling their software to large corporations, and that's basically it. That's what they figured out. So they had the resources to do it. They were born with a reasonable intellectual capacity where they can even develop this kind of stuff. But when you start talking about this extraordinary I would assume that an extraordinary intelligence would find a way to impact society in a much more positive way, like for instance this, and I can't believe they haven't done it yet, but if you develop that software that you sell to companies, why not make it available also to the population? So you're selling it to companies and you're making money from the population because you're showing them what how this software is collecting data and judging you. So I'm surprised that something hasn't come, and I'm sure that's on its way, which is going to have a 50-50, a good and bad impact. The good will be that or that we know how we're being how our actions are being calculated. The bad part, obviously, is that it might get into our heads even more, and that our freedom is limited in an even greater way because we're constantly watching what we do, knowing that a machine is judging us, and that's basically what the social credit score is going to be, or the social score, which it's already here. It's just not as overt. We don't have it attached to our identities the way that it did in that episode in Black Mirror, but it really is already here. I mean, if you're looking at what I just explained and how this person was judged and didn't get a job, I mean, that is a social score. So and you were deemed worthy or unworthy based on your virtual interactions and your behaviors and your virtual behaviors. So so that's why I think what Andrew Yang was doing was very important. Now to Bernie Sanders, because Bernie, it was unfortunate what happened in 2016, because he mobilized a base, and then with what could have been the idea the whole time, which is to get people politically activated and then side with Hillary Clinton, knowing that the DNC was going to nominate her. Um, and now in 2020 they're trying to sabotage him again, it seems like. And this person who he reluctantly supported after he dropped out of the 2016 race is like publicly coming out and saying nobody likes him and stuff like that, which is like, again, it's just very strange. And none of these Democrats are really being brought up as like the next, superstar, political superstar. I mean, Obama, when he was in the Senate, we already started seeing him, and people already started saying, hey, he should run. Charismatic guy. So he was already getting traction before he even decided to run for president. And he was getting attention, and they were people were kind of creating him as this kind of superstar Democrat. And if you look at the lineup the way it is now, I mean, none of these people have really been molded into a political I don't want to say enemy, but a political equivalent to what's going to happen on the campaign trail against Trump, because that's basically because Trump knows how to work the media. He's probably at his best when he is doing rallies and debating other candidates, and it's really a heavyweight bout. So not only are you looking at, can this person win the Democratic seat or the Democratic ticket, but then can they, go against Trump and not be completely demolished? Because Trump gets in there and he gives you a nickname, and then all of a sudden the nickname catches on. I also have a feeling that the progressive left side, because it's going so far left with identity politics and stuff like that, it is creating more people that are going towards the center and to the center right. I think it is turning a lot of people off, and I don't think they're Trump supporters by any means, but I think that they're like, well, wait a minute, what's going on here? I mean, a lot of these ideas aren't necessarily it doesn't seem like they're kind of rigorously thought out. And what is the Democratic Party at this point? I think that it's kind of losing its identity. What does it stand for? Because a lot of the issues that are coming up, there is no legislation and there's no way to legislate it. So, I mean, we're talking about economy, and then the Republicans have always had a way to, say things are communist. So it's not like, Bernie coming to the table is there's nothing kind of new or unique to, what the Republicans are saying or doing. I mean, anytime they brought up universal health care, stuff like this, even years ago, it's always, it's communist, it's Russia, it's this, that, the other thing, and it's just not the case. I mean, I think what Bernie and what I think, Democrats have traditionally been for is a fair distribution of wealth. And what I mean by that is, if you look at, what people were making in the 70s and then adjusted for inflation, what people are making now, it's a very little growth. There's very little opportunities to really, have a strong economic chance, unless and again, I think that's why Andrew Yang is talking about this universal basic income. But and try and get out of so many wars, and don't boost the the military spending to the point where it's ridiculous. Workers having somewhat of a voice within a corporation. I mean, these are all things that have been traditionally left-leaning. Education, bringing down the costs of education, stuff like that. And it does, ask for a larger government as far as, government intervention in particular programs, and then, things of that nature, obviously. Okay, Google, thank you. So anyway, that those are my opinions on Andrew Yang. Those are my opinions on what's going to happen with Bernie Sanders. I mean, I think he is going to win the ticket, but they are pushing Mayor Pete, and I have nothing against him. I don't really know what Mayor Pete stands for. I haven't seen him too much in the debates or anything like that. I haven't watched much of it this year. I've leaned more towards print media as far as getting my information. I've kept in touch with what's going on with Bernie and if he's gaining popularity and if he's going to be the one to go against Trump, which that would be exciting as far as debates are concerned. I mean, I think that he could really go after Donald Trump in a big way and really, really come at him pretty strongly. And I can only imagine that Trump and Trump's team could be slightly nervous. Again, in my opinion, you also have to take a look at how many other people are involved. And what I mean by that is, I need some food here. How about some grilled rash tag? What I mean by that is, lobbyists, you're talking about corporations, you're talking about, tax breaks for, companies. Like, who are they? It's not like they don't have any skin in the game. I mean, they have more skin in the game than us. And they certainly have more resources and power to influence what's going to happen. And I think that if Bernie, and I think everybody knows, if Bernie got in there, he would, it would be very difficult to get a lot of these policies passed. But and I come from the school where I don't think that, I think that colleges, private schools are just, they're just much too expensive. And then, it's like anything else. It's like, who put the value at this? Like when it comes to medication, stuff like that, is there an intrinsic value to this that makes it $500, or did you just look at it and say that's $500? It's the same thing with schools. I mean, Harvard and Yale and all these places, are obviously well respected. So, their price tag, I can kind of, again, it's just the world adjusting for inflation, but not, the worker paychecks are not adjusted for inflation, so so I don't even know where I was going with that, but so that's my opinion on the Andrew Yang and Bernie Sanders. And unfortunately Andrew Yang is out of the race. I was getting even more excited, and I think his voter base was expanding. The more people were like, whoa, who is this guy? What does he stand for? Again, I think I'm really happy that he had such a great response from especially young people, because it proves that that exciting ideas excite people, and new and fresh ideas, and we see it all the time, and it's awesome to see it in politics. But and that's it, from this nice relaxing wasteland in front of a restaurant. You take care of yourselves.